First of all, Canada started 20 years ago this year, with a very progressive Oceans Act. It was a great thing. We all celebrated it. I remember when it came into force, and we thought it was going to be the thing that was going to really change oceans management in Canada. It enabled marine planning under sections 31 and 32, and it said that the Government of Canada shall lead and facilitate the development and implementation of plans for the integrated management of all activities or measures in or affecting estuaries, coastal waters, and marine waters that form part of Canada. That's very ambitious. That was 20 years ago. We do have renewed interest in the oceans. Hallelujah. I think my colleague Wendy Watson-Wright provided some excellent examples of renewed ocean investment in ocean science and education. These are very much needed. We had a decade of sort of ignoring the fact that we had oceans. And with the government change in 2015, there's renewed interest in actually implementing our environmental laws, updating them where necessary. We're also now able to hold governments accountable, so all of the mandates from every department are made public, and so we know what the ministers are supposed to do, and as a non-government organization, I can talk to the minister and say, you're working on that? It's in your letter. Are you doing it? And we have a national imperative at all levels, from the individual to the national government, to reconcile their Indigenous peoples. This is a huge objective of our government, and it's changed who Canada is, I think, in the last 2 years in ways that we are still trying to understand. So political will is imperative in future success. I guess we'll need to develop co-governance and shared decision-making. And there's big opportunities to frame marine spatial planning as part of the blue economy. And to ensure decision-making power is devolved, we're working towards co-governance. I think that Canada's commitment to 10% marine protection by 2020 is going to drive more of this marine planning process. But where exactly, it's unclear how it's going to move it forward. I would say a really recent example that just got announced the end of September that's quite exciting from a whole bunch of perspectives is a marine spatial plan that's driven by the Nunatsiavut government, which are the Labrador Inuit north of Newfoundland, and the federal government. So we have two federal government departments, Environment and Fisheries and Oceans, at the table with Nunatsiavut government. It's a direct nation-to-nation plan. It is, for the Inuit government, all about claiming their rights and sovereignty to our lands adjacent to their land claim agreements. And they want a very fast timeline. They would like the plan to be completed by 2019. The other plans I talked about have all taken over a decade. So this got announced the end of September. They're already doing a traditional knowledge survey. They're going out to do community meetings in December. It's very quick. It will be interesting to see how it goes. And one of the drivers is they need food. They need traditional food, traditional hunting areas, and they're very concerned about oil and gas in areas near their jurisdiction and their land claim agreements.
Marine planning may encourage the mapping of important biological or ecological areas in time and space, and areas of special economic interest to human activities. So it's important that these data sources are identified before the exercise. Streamline the regulatory permitting processes. Rather than developing new regulations, the planning processes can find out ways to identify and reduce redundant requirements for data collection and environmental impact reviews. Addressing user and resource conflicts. Marine planning cannot always produce win-win results. It cannot eliminate conflicts. It provides a mechanism to address them. And we think it's important not from the start to say that marine spatial planning is win-win for everyone. It's not the case, and it has to be clear in the beginning. Reduction of investor uncertainty. A well-formed and implemented plan can bring strategic and economic certainty for areas where particular activities may take place, where conditions have been met to make that happen. Efficient use of public and private funds. Given the youth of marine planning, little data exists in terms of its overall cost. However, in comparing the cost of planning to the cost of delay and litigation as a result of user conflicts, several examples show that planning can provide a more efficient use of government and private sector funds.
The technical capacity to do MSP is missing in most of the institutions. There is some capabilities at the NGO communities and at the universities, but at the government agencies is very limited. There is no coordinating intersectorial agency for those sectors that want to work together. Even though we have had several training events and And even some of our organizations train people in other countries. So there is some capabilities in the country. Blue Solutions, for example, methodologies that we have been involved with has been expanded in the region. So this is the situation that we have with MSP, but I don't want to sound very negative. There is some opportunities, really. I mean, there is good scientific information for the region. Not only national, but international research has been present for decades in this region. There is good level of technical staff in many of the organizations. There is a new technology that helps a lot with the data gathering. The society as a whole is incorporating marine issues in their values. So there is a lot of support for marine conservation in our communities, and that is a plus. There is a traditional involvement of communities in participatory processes, mostly related with planning in land, but that can be used as a plus for planning in sea. There is a tradition of involvement of coastal communities in monitoring processes, mostly fish landing. And there are some regional coordinated bodies like CPPS in the South Pacific, like CCAD, the Central American Environmental Commission, which don't look at marine issues, but that can be a good platform to expand into marine issues. So as an oral conclusion, I will say that our region urgently needs to implement policy on MSP. We need to incorporate mandatory MSP processes and regulations in all the sectors. That is something that without it, we will not advance, even if we invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in training on planning. We need policy to back up our actions. We need to improve the MPA management, and that means resources for people in the ground and equipment. And we need to increase the regional coordination among the countries. We are separated only for a few kilometers away from one boundary to the other one. So it's only natural that we work as a unity, and we are failing doing so.
So the assessment and evaluation of those ecosystems is quite important. And when you go to different regions in part of the world, such as Africa, that is now the blue economy is really taking off, at least as a concept, that how do we develop our economies? We have the whole blue economy space. If you don't know what you have, how will you be able to use the resources? And I think this is a crucial discussion, particularly in the African context, as well as, of course, the Asians as well. And the next phase will then be, how do you build up this trust between the different stakeholders? How do you have this trust that we do have a common vision on how we're going to use our resources, and we have different stakeholders that have different roles in this process? And that is, of course, depending on some parts of the world, governments look different, business look different, and you have different, it's not a clear case on the various roles of the different stakeholders in the process.
We went to Senegal or other countries, Vietnam, for example, but the bottom-up approach is not so successful in those countries. The reason is the movement of the people is very frequent in those areas. For example, in Senegal or West Africa, the fishermen in the neighboring countries are frequently coming inside of the one country and catch fish. That, if that happens, the free rider program occurred, and the bottom-up approach will not be successful. That is our lesson to be learned from our experiences.